Welcome back to the WazaMedia Podcast. WazaMedia is a digital marketing agency that believes in the power of storytelling. We show this. Let me do that one more time. Welcome back to the WazaMedia Podcast. WazaMedia is a digital marketing agency that believes in the power of storytelling. We show businesses and individuals how to communicate in a laser focus in a media saturated world. Woo! What a day. I want to talk to you about Novo. Novo is you can get a free business checking account. If you the new year is coming out and you're setting up your business, January is a good place to start. And if you need a checking account, go to waza.media/Novo. That's waza.media/NOVO. I am happy to bring on our show today. We have Jorge Rodriguez. Jorge, thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, JR.
Jorge Rodriguez is an alert and warning coordinator and also an emergency manager in Sonoma County, California. And Jorge, for our listening audience who doesn't know where that area is in California, because I feel where people mostly know California or places on the map on California are Los Angeles and San Francisco. So could you describe where Sonoma County is?
Well, Sonoma County is just above San Francisco there in the North Bay. We're the second county north from San Francisco proper. And it's kind of the in-between San Francisco and the Oregon border.
Okay, so it's cheating for me because I know where that is, and I've been up there, and so I think I feel that area is much better from the area where we grew up in California, and how we first know each other out in the Central Valley.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, there's a little bit difference in the climate and temperatures that we see here compared to what Central Valley sees, and it's a little bit just different overall from even what the southern part of California sees. It's a lot different temperatures. It's a little bit cooler. We're also borderline with the Pacific Ocean, so we get that nice marine influence, and it's all around good job. So if you know Sonoma County or the Napa area, you know that the wines here are pretty delectable.
I do like wine. So that's you're in an awesome area. You've got the ocean, you've got the wine, you've got nature out there. I think you're in a good spot, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that again, you know where we come from, so you know that it's a little better.
So today, Jorge, we're going to talk about a little bit about what you do in relation to crisis communications, acting quickly in a digital world. And while this may sound like a stretch in some of the things that we talk about on this podcast, I think the biggest part, Jorge, is that talking about the digital platforms. We talk a lot about social and getting our message out from a business standpoint, but there's also a different element when it comes to crisis communications. And I think you're going to bring a different perspective than what our audience isn't aware about with your story. And speaking of story, because WazaMedia believes in the power of storytelling, Jorge, could you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, thanks again, JR. Like I mentioned, we know each other from the Central Valley, California. That's where I grew up and going through the first part of my career. I worked as a public safety dispatcher for about 6 years in the Central Valley area before coming into the field of emergency management and going down to the Central Coast part of the state to here in California. Was with that agency and organization for about 6 years before coming up here to the North Bay. And what I do is the emergency management as a discipline. And like I mentioned in the introduction, specific to alert and warning and kind of how that plays into notifying the public during an emergency. And of course, communications is a big part of that as well.
And it was super cool to see you earlier this year when we were in training in Maryland at the National Emergency Training Center up in upstate. I think that's the right way of saying it, upstate Maryland. So it was good to see you because I haven't seen you since elementary school.
It had been a long time. I think we figured out it was like 16 or 17 years that we had last seen each other, but we never lost a connection through the power of social media.
The power of social keeping us all together. So from East Coast for where I am to West Coast to where you are, power of social has brought us together. And I think that's just awesome that we were able to keep in touch for so long. Awesome. Thank you for telling our audience about your story. I want to dive into a little bit about crisis communications. And the first question I want to talk about is, what are some of the main goals of communicating to your audiences when there's an emergency or crisis, especially in your area?
Sure, and I'll start by saying that the audience is really anybody who is within the boundaries of my county. So we're talking not only residents, but visitors, businesses, all those folks who might be impacted by an emergency. So one of the main goals for us, or one of the main goals in my position, is to provide that accurate yet timely information of what the incident is, what is going on, and what they have to do, because nothing is more important than providing those messages to the residents and to those folks in that timely fashion, but also giving them the information they need to make their own decisions. Depending on if there's anything that they have to do on their end, or if there's any evacuation orders where they have to leave, we can provide them the information in case it's not to that point, to say, this is what's going on. This is what might happen in the next 30 minutes, the next hour. Stay tuned. And folks who may need additional information can go to different sources that we have. But it's that timely and accurate information that we provide them to help them make those decisions. That overall is that initial response to an initial response piece to that.
And sometimes emergencies can happen very quickly. And I'm thinking about some of the stuff that's happened in Tennessee, where a tornado has touched down, and speed becomes the most important thing. And getting the word out as quickly as possible and getting the right accurate information out as quickly as possible to those who are affected is really, really, really crucial.
Absolutely. And with those, sometimes there could be forecasted events, or that this might be a potential, and folks who live in different hazard prone areas would know kind of the steps of what to do. You hear in California, and it's now throughout the state, and we're not that foreign to wildfires. We have our specific wildfire season, so it's knowing what to do, what to expect, what we might think might happen, but really we don't know the details until a spark lights off a fire. So we can say it's going to happen here at this time, at this place. It's now it's happening. We got to let the people in that area, we got to let them know what's going on, and also let folks who are outside of that area, surrounding environment, letting them know, hey, this is what's going on here. You got to keep watching what's going on, because it might affect you based on the conditions that are occurring, at that particular moment. So it is really important to do that.
I want to paint the picture of California wildfires for our audience, and I'm going to use my wife's example. So I think it was in 2016 or 15. I can't remember. It was a couple years ago. I brought my wife, then girlfriend at the time. We flew into LAX and we drove through the Central Valley, and it was during the summer. It was in June, so right in the season for wildfires. And we were going up the I-5 through the Central Valley and through the Grapevine, where there was a huge wildfire. Now, my wife grew up in upstate New York, so they don't normally have wildfires up there. And she was the one that taught me more about snow, which you and I know snow doesn't happen in the Central Valley. And so she's never really experienced wildfires. And when we were driving in our rental car going up, she could actually feel the heat as we were in the freeway with all the cars going north on Interstate 5, through the Grapevine, through all these foothills. you could feel the heat even in our car. And so these wildfires can grow very quickly, and you could. And she was just surprised in how much all those foothills just caught on fire.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, being in the North Bay of California, you know, the latest one that comes to memory is the 2017 fire. That was before my time here with the county, but certainly since 2017, we've had our fair share of large wildfires here, and our share of mass evacuations of having to move thousands and tens of thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of people out of the area. So yeah, they are something that they are a threat, and again, that communication piece is important to one, alert them of what's going on, but also keep them informed where to find the information that's important to them.
Speaking
and by them, I mean residents.
Gotcha. Now, speaking of keeping them informed, it sounds like there has to be some preemptive planning in order to capture the attention of the people in your area, because I know there are some tools that you can have to instantly communicate with people, and I'm sure our audience is familiar with the mass notification system on our cell phones. But do you use any digital platforms in order to communicate with your local communities, so that way, that you build that relationship, so when something happens, they know what to do, and they where they are, where they're looking for information?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll put a plug in here to a specific emergency website that the county here uses, socoemergency.org, for anyone who might be interested in looking at it. But this is the main page of not only emergency information, but preparedness information on recovery for after the incident. But it's at one location where if there is something happening, information is going to be posted there, and it's going to be continually updated. So on one front, we have that website digital component piece. We also use social media and have social media throughout the incident, but also provide information on just sometimes general preparedness information, along with other county-related information on there in order to keep folks engaged. But you mentioned, the mass notification systems, and like most counties here in California and throughout the United States, we all have some type of mass communication or mass notification type system. But it's important to know that not one system is that one size fits all. It's not. There's no single silver bullet that is out there that can provide the alert capability that we need to alert everyone. And like I mentioned earlier, everyone being residents, visitors, folks who may not have technology, they don't have a cell phone. How do we reach those folks? And as public safety, it's our responsibility to do that. So we want to ensure that we use all the tools in our toolbox when something is happening right from the get-go. But as things are ramped up and we have a good response structure going, that we also provide just those different methods where we can get the most folks in the know of what's going on as the incident unfolds.
You bring up a good point about the audience, and that's something that we talk about a lot on this podcast when it comes to these digital platforms. Your part and what you do, I feel that you have to expand more, and to even think that there's someone out there without a cell phone. There's people like that, but it's true.
Exactly.
And so to think not outside the digital platforms, but besides all the social media platforms, and then text messaging, and then I'm sure you've got stuff related to landlines, you've got TV, you've got radio announcements, an audio speaker system. I mean, I'm just thinking about all the different ways and how to communicate, and some that we would think that no, that belongs in a museum, but no, it's something that is applicable. And and I think in your line of work, you got to think outside the box and outside our generation that is not related to these devices.
Right, exactly. And a good example of that is, a small portable radio, a small little boombox. I bought one specifically for emergencies that's battery operated, that I know can still pick up the radio stations in the area. It's not digital in any means, in that it has the LED screen. It's one of those that you actually have to turn in order to get the frequency in there. But it's one of those redundant systems that's still out there, that is still used in order to try to get that message out. Because if you consider this, we can send out a wireless emergency alert to a cell phone. So folks who don't have cell phones will get that won't get that alert. We could send out a message, an emergency message, through the emergency alert system, which goes to local TV, local radio stations. But if it's at 2 a.m, folks are asleep, they don't have their TV on or their radio on, they're not going to receive that alert. So those folks are out. Folks who may have a disability, or who have access and functional needs, if you have there's a deaf resident out there who can't hear the alarms going off, there's a gap there. Along with, we were talking fast moving incidents, in that public safety personnel, first responders, are out there trying to do door knocks, or trying to get in the neighborhoods to let people know what's going on. That's resource intensive, of having to have people go out and do that. So one of the things that public safety here in the area has adopted are high-low siren, which is a specific siren that's used only for emergencies, to let people know there's something going on, you have to evacuate now. It's almost like an evacuation button, and it's a specific tone that they use, and all of the public safety agencies have adopted it. So that's one way to get the message out. And second, we were looking at the NOAA weather radios, and they have attachments on there that can be added, that are both a strobe light and a pillow shaker. So we were talking of a potential deaf resident out there who may not get the initial information or the message that we put out, but the fact that they're getting a light or something to alert them, along with a bed shaker or a pillow shaker that can startle them awake, it is one of those different little methods that we have, and using that in our toolbox to ensure that we can get more people in the know and alerted to an emergency.
I remember being in a hotel room, and the only available spot that they had for me, because I came in early, was it was an accessibility, a bed for accessibility, and it was the bed did shake when someone would ring the doorbell, and I found that out the hard way. Or I was it was a long trip, I took a nap, and then someone rang the doorbell, and my bed was shaking, and I had no idea. It was brand new to me that they had something like this existed, and it definitely was a it did, what's the right colloquialism for it? It did shake me up a little bit.
And it's one of those things that we wouldn't necessarily consider in the everyday, but when you're looking at what we call the whole community in our discipline, where it's everyone within your area responsibility, and that's there's still gaps, and it's working with the community to identify those gaps, and also come up with the solutions in order to make those gaps smaller or eliminate them all completely.
So you have a lot of people in your target audience that you're trying to reach, as far as age, as far as technology devices and communications vehicles to get your word out. So with that, that's a huge thing to think about. I want to ask you, when a crisis happens, what's the first thing that pops in your mind when you get an alert about a disaster, an oil spill, a car accident, a multi-vehicle crash that's in a main road, or a wildfire that's spreading? What's the first thing that pops in your mind that says, I got to do this?
Yeah, first, it's the first thoughts that come to mind are what's going on and who needs to know this information. because I myself need to have an understanding of what's going on in order to formulate what that message is going to be. Also check in with those first responders or incident commander to see what their priorities are for that incident, and again craft their priorities also into the messaging to let people know, or to let those who need to know what is going on and what action they have to take. Because if I don't have an understanding and I don't do those initial actions to begin with, I may have a message that's completely false, that can completely doesn't have the information that they need, and it's not going to do anybody any good for me to do that work and take that information. So really gotta have that checked off on the list of figure out what's going on and who needs to know that information.
I like that, finding out who needs to know. I had a previous boss that I worked for that he kind of memed himself. He took a picture of himself going like this, and then he put in block letters, "Who else needs to know?" And he made a color print of that in every office, or every door of in the entire office. And it was great because it helped us with the internal communications of what we did in the office. But now applying it to what you do in emergency management, I think it makes sense. Is who needs to know this information? Is it local to one area? Is the disaster something that could, I'm thinking an oil spill, will it or say a toxic exposure that's airborne? Do you need to go in the map and find out, where the wind is going is the next town
Exactly
affected? So I think
exactly
I like your first response, and the first thinking is who else needs to know, because that will determine how wide your reach. It really goes into an audience analysis of who that'll affect. Now with the disasters, we talked about your first initial thoughts when a disaster hits or situation arises. And I know sometimes as an emergency coordinator, you may have to go on site to handle communications, find out what's going on, and so that way you could better craft your message. And I know sometimes you may have to be there for a while. And so I know this is common with emergency communicators and public information officers, but do you have a gear kit list that you have that's ready to go, that you just grab and you're ready to go on site?
Yes and no, in that I probably have to go through it and make sure it's updated. So as we go into the winter, I have to make sure I have my winter stuff in there. But I have two things. One that I carry with me all the time that's in my car, and that's going to be boots. That's going to be pants or jeans. That's more out in the field. By nature, I also carry a polo shirt and a vest with the agency logo on it, so that if I'm in the middle of something, doing a personal errand, something pops off, I have to go to the scene, I have something that's branded, and I can do that. But also what I carry in my general backpack, and it's not necessarily a go bag, but it's one that I use every day. It's something that could be used for anything, not necessarily just public information, but also emergency management. And that's things to do self-care. You like you mentioned, you could be out there for a while, so making sure you have some snacks or some type of protein bar, water bottle. I carry water in my car just frequently. But specific to what might be in a public information role or communications type role, you can't go anywhere without a pen and paper. Sometimes that just works best, and you have it.
School. That sounds so old school, but
But if you don't have your phone there to take down the notes, you have your paper and your pad of paper, or your pen and your pad of paper. But also, as part of the communications kit, a USB lapel microphone, a little tripod with a phone adapter, so if there's need to be any video or anything like that. Also a USB voice recorder. a digital voice recorder that's battery operated. So you can do the sound bite, plug it into your computer, and you have a good quality a sound bite. But everybody's different. Whatever you think you might need, it's a good idea to have something to know how to MacGyver something in order to make it work. Because that's how we do it in emergency management. Sometimes you have to just use what you got in order to complete the mission and get things done. So those were some of the basic things. Along with make sure you have a phone charger and a power bank. You think you'd be out in your vehicle, you can plug it into your car. But if you're going to be out in the field and mobile away from your car, you have a power bank that you can keep your device powered up with. So
speed and accuracy in getting the word out. And I like some of the tools that communications tools that you talked about, especially having a USB lapel. And I think in your line of work, it's better to have a wired version than a wireless one, right? Because I know when you're dealing in a crisis situation and you need to get a word out, I would think there's too many variables for things to go wrong with a wireless system than a wired one. What's your experience telling you?
Indeed, so we've become used to the wireless piece and having the different components and tools that we have be wireless and not connected to cables. And sure, those run on batteries. So if they go out, unless you have extra battery or a power, just a power pack, but an actual power station that's a little bit more robust and can charge those type of devices. For those who are listening in, notice that I have a cord connected to my earplugs here because I don't want to be in the middle of something where all of a sudden the battery drains out and now I'm scrambling to get audio back on. So if you can control it, wired is best for that just redundant type of communication. If you can do both, have one wireless that works on battery and one wired, more power to you. But sometimes it's just being on the safer side, going wired sometimes is the way to go.
I'm holding in my hand one of the last lightning port Apple AirPod, not AirPods, earbuds. Because they don't put these in the boxes anymore, is what I learned that Apple stopped doing that. So, I mean, I think I got 2 or 3 of them, and I always keep 1 or 2 around because I know I run the batteries off my AirPods at times. But now I guess Apple believes that no one needs a new one anymore to go with the new iPhones. But I haven't bought an iPhone in years. But having a couple of these around for redundancy. And still, the audio quality is still pretty good, even on this little mic thing.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, if you're going to be out in the field and you're doing mobile, sometimes that's all you have, and that could still allow you, if you're interviewing somebody or you need to do some type of one-on-one call, or like I said, interview again. The quality's not the best, but it's better than trying to pass the phone around or trying to have an open room type of setup. But hey, keep those, hang on to those earbuds, because I know I have a few sets rolling around. I'm sure I have one that's still in the original wrapping, and it's going to be either a collector's item or a high commodity on eBay here pretty soon.
Yeah, I would think it would be a hot item on eBay. Jorge, as we're closing up, you talked a lot of interesting things, and given our audience a different perspective from what we normally talk about when we talk about businesses and marketing to communities, for just using digital platforms, mostly social. But you've talked more and opened the door to thinking outside just these digital platforms. There's much more. There's the traditional side, and I like how you brought the importance of having an old school radio. And the first thing that popped up in my mind was if Skynet took over and EMP'd everything, with having the old school radio. would be one way to get information. Are there any other tips that you would recommend as far as if I was a resident in a county, what's the best way for me to get plugged in if an emergency were to happen, prevention, anything of that sort? What's the best way to get information like that?
Sure, wherever you are, wherever you live, check with your local county or city emergency management page. If there's not a specific office or department that deals in emergency management, look at your police department or fire department. Get connected and get signed in, registered for that mass notification piece, and also look for different technologies or redundant methods of getting information and being informed, such as the NOAA weather radio, or any other type of system that might be out there that's used by your local emergency responders. And just overall general in terms of preparedness, the three things are making a plan with your family, for your business specifically, if you don't have one, of how your business is going to continue to operate or respond to an emergency that might happen within your four walls of your business. Also make a kit or build a kit of what information you might need for both your family as well as your work, and be informed. Like I mentioned, register for your local mass notification system, and get connected with your local emergency management agency.
Another thing I would add is this is what I do with my county here in Fairfax County, Virginia, is I subscribe to my county's Twitter with notifications. I hit the bell. And then also I subscribe to their email newsletter that they push out. They push out good stuff. And so those are some of the digital ways and how you can get connected with your county. Jorge, if our audience wants to get in touch with you and follow you, what's the best way they can do so?
Sure. I'm on Facebook and Twitter. You can search for J. Rod Sonoma for both Facebook and Twitter. And on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn as well. J. Rodriguez, CEM, Certified Emergency Manager. So look for me on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome, Jorge. It was really good that we got to chat. And I know it's been months. I think this is that we've seen each other twice this year, which is more than we have in the last 18 years. So power of technology.
Indeed, and it was great seeing you earlier this year, and I hope that as the years go on, it's even with much recurring frequency, my friend.
I hope so too. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you very much, JR.
Thanks for watching another episode of the WazaMedia Podcast. If you're interested in WazaMedia, go to our main channel over here. And if you want to listen to more podcast episodes, go over here. See you next time.